Recording. It's like I just jumped in the pool. Well, there's no turning back now. I'm gonna try to be pretty serious in this video, even though there's cats running around. I think humor is important, but other times I think we should be frank and serial. So let's get right to it. Thank you for being here this week. I love you all. God bless, and welcome. So the serious video, this is a collection from the Cornell University Library, and there's about 1,300 pictures. There's more, I think. Too many for one video. But what stuck out was the old photos of Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. is kind of shady. I mean, in many ways. The way that it's a separate district of Columbia. And as I've mentioned in the past, at a very young age it was the architecture in Washington, D.C. that made me begin to question everything I do today, the things I make videos on. And this collection had a whole bunch of images of old Washington, D.C. Here, for example, the Washington Monument, an aerial view. And isn't it just strange? I mean, it's not to us in this community, but how strange that the same types of buildings and architecture used at World's Fairs would also become federal buildings, courts, Wall Street, defense departments. And this is the symbol of America from day one. It's not the log cabin. It's not pilgrims' boats. It's these buildings. Every news anchor has this Greco-Roman architecture behind him. Every politician, almost overly flaunted so that it becomes normal. And yet there's nothing normal about it. Here's a view of the mall. Interesting that they call it a mall. Looking from the direction of the Washington Monument, so it would be behind us. And here we go. See this Capitol building? We actually see very little landscaping and everything very young, even in 1942. Just getting things going. And here we see another building with a beautiful dome, another one behind it. These things are huge. And again, government designations. And again, some of the oldest. And really just a hodgepodge. This looks like a hotel. Here we have a cathedral, industry, trains. And we have to take a look at George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, the people of this time. This is not the kinds of buildings that they could or would build in early America. I mean, they don't have the means, and yet it's all here today, looking the same, looking absolutely superior to anything that we build today. And this is all the real deal, not just fake or facaded. And even here, they have no shame boasting the authenticity and quality of these buildings. Here again, another little look at a western view. I mean, look at all of this. This is essentially a park. Huge. Northeastern view of the District of Columbia. Again, 1942. An excellent photograph here. Now, is this really governmental? I discussed in a past video how hive-like all of this is. I mean, it doesn't look like government facilities. If anything, it looks like a hotel. The whole damn thing looks like a hotel. Otherwise, this is kind of stupid. In a hotel, it would make sense. For one night, you wouldn't mind being packed in these cubicles if you were on vacation. It's a lovely hotel. But to have the nerve to tell us that these have government functions, I mean, they're too beautiful for that. They're too big. And again, this is our nation's capital city, shady capital city. They had to create a separate district so that they can create separate laws that apply to this district. They have the people believing they are citizens of this district when they are not. And sometimes that's not enough. They have to go to secret islands to prepare other illegitimate organizations. So here we have a baseball field right in front of this beautiful building, this hotel, and this looks like an afterthought. I mean, why not make it look beautiful? Why so junky? Surely there could have been columns all around here. Surely the grass could look better. Clearly something was removed from here. Right in front of the White House. I think this is the White House. Really looking insignificant compared to these other buildings. I don't know if you can tell how old these buildings are. This one appears to have grass or algae on the roof. Too many buildings. And again, the White House being so insignificant. All of these other buildings seem to dwarf this junky little White House. And actually, I think most of the White House is buried, as we can see in this photo. We can see the wings extend to either side. Let's look at a modern picture. And back to this one. Pretty unbelievable city. Every square inch totally built out and looking super old by 1942. Washington, D.C. The U.S. Constitution in 1789 called for the creation of a federal district under the exclusive jurisdiction of the U.S. Congress. It's not part of any state and not one itself. In 1790, they approved the creation of the Capital District. The city was founded in 1791, and the first session was held in 1800 in the Capitol building. So that's it. The city was founded in 1791. Designed by Pierre Charles L'Enfant, or the Child. Pierre Peter Charles the Child. He was a French-American artist. His work today is known as the L'Enfant Plan, or the Child Plan. History. The Algonquin people used to reside here. Conflicts displaced the people. Here is the United States Congress in 1800. It was moved here. Originally, it was in Philadelphia. So here we go. Here is the construction, I guess. These men chiseling away at blocks. We have a piece of Corinthian column right here. They must have chiseled that too. This looks like this guy is sawing this stone, and everybody else is just having a nice little chat. Perhaps the politicians. Here we go. They probably passed a law stating that construction for something must begin right away. And here we go. Here's crew. I mean, very nice artistry. This artist could have depicted anything. Actually, the building looking nicer than the people as far as the artwork goes. 1800, just a feel for how things were back then. Pretty damn nice. Look back here. Whole city. Huge buildings. Look at this one off to the right. And here, a hotel. And this one, pretty modest. Designated as the United States Congress building. Here we go. These guys are assembling. We're to believe that they built this and everything we were just looking at, and the city back here with these means, everything being shown to us, begging our questions, and yet very few question the reality of this. I mean, really, what are we really doing here? It's going to take this guy all day to cut this block. And what about this man? How long until he turns this block into one of these Corinthian column tops? You got a few thousand to go. And very lengthy, really. Debates between founding fathers. Just a bunch of BS, really. Unrealistic. Even their clothing is too nice. The only thing that they couldn't hide was their hair, and really crusty hair, all of them. So crusty they wore wigs. Why? Because they didn't have showers. They didn't have running water and toilets, just outhouses. And this is supposed to be a picture in 1861, 5 weeks before the start of the American Civil W. And this is complete BS as well. This is not a construction photo. Everything that we do see looks so old. 1861. Here we see the Eisenhower Executive Building, built between 1871 and 1888. Really? Governmental facility? I mean, this really looks like a hotel. This is just so ridiculous. You only need 5% of this building. And yet we're told in this time period, in the 1800s, this was the world's largest office building until 1943, when it was surpassed by the Pentagon. And now this is the largest office building. But right from the get-go, this was built, completed in 1888. And everything, every square inch, giant roads for these horse and wagons. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stories. World's largest office building. Does this look like an office building? Does it look like these people trotting around could build this or would build this? Pre-power, pre-indoor plumbing? No. This is not realistic, especially when you're in the middle of a war and just getting started, pre-industry. So here's a look at some neighborhoods in Washington, D.C., and I thought this building was really fascinating in the neighborhood of Edgewood. And I love these explorations. Even with the years I've been researching, I'm constantly discovering new buildings. This thing is absolutely mind-blowing. Tucked away in some little neighborhood in Washington, D.C. I mean, there's a lot more to be discovered here. This is an old district, clearly not built by these people. And look at this baby, just hiding out. I'm going to have to do some research on this one. Some cathedral, some mosque, cathedral, tower, hybrid building. And here again, the Jefferson Memorial. And it looks tiny compared to all the other buildings. And this is just to give you a feel at how massive it really is. This thing being essentially a replica of the Parthenon or Pantheon. I always get them confused. One of the oldest concrete structures in the world. And here we have one in Washington, D.C. I mean, like, identical. And mind you, it's just a memorial. It's not even a practical building, at least today. I think when you call something a memorial, you just don't know what to do with it. Here we can see the historic population. In 1800, they had 8,000 people, a little over 100,000 people in 1870. 100,000 people, and this city looks like it's at least 500 years old. So here we can see that building we were just looking at, the Basilica of the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception. Some other random ones, just to show that we have all styles present in this city. This is the Islamic Center. There we go. Beautiful tower here. Look at this thing. Looks like it needs a little manicure. Here we see the Federal or non-federal reserve sneaking in here, getting a building. And here the Federal Triangle, the one we're essentially looking at in the oldest depictions with the horse and wagons all around. Again, just to show you how massive and ridiculous all of this is. Pretty unbelievable. The French ambassador's residence. Okay. And in a sense, I think there was too much in this area. Perhaps this area would have blown the lid off of their story. And I just love things like this. Seeing the old building, all its detail, now totally disregarded, covered up with ugly signage. I think this really adds to everything that we discuss. The inheriting and repurposing of an old, sophisticated, advanced civilization. Here's a look inside the Smithsonian Museum, which is in Washington, D.C., if you didn't know. You can see it in the oldest photos, just sitting there. And here we go. This beautiful building and this junk inside. Absolute junk and propaganda. Essentially painting a narrative for these people. Look here, look there, and don't look at this building and ask any questions. Here's another museum, the National Building Museum. This looks like a train station. Come on, are you kidding me? But museums, memorials, perfect designations for stolen buildings. So I think that's it. Just a quick snapshot of our nation's capital. Okay, here I just want to talk about meltology real quick. A lot of people wonder how the bricks could turn into blocks. and we have to study something else, in this case wood. And this has something to do with frequency related to the heat. I mean, essentially a piece of wood, our body, is made up of tiny pieces. And when heated, these pieces separate into larger blocks. And you can see it here. And I think this is the same thing that's taking place with a lot of these buildings, especially the ones that have these large, irregular blocks. Here's another example of a piece that's been heated a little more than the other one, and we can see the pattern that it takes. And I think we have to take this approach, studying other things, decomposing, in this case by fire, to understand what we're seeing all throughout this round. I thank you for joining me this week. Do have a blessed day. I love you all. God bless, and I'll see you next week.